Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're coming from in the world. Thank you for joining us for Starting and Growing Resilient Communities, Session 1, our series overview. I'm Ingrid Cochran, the Tennessee and Midwest Community Facilitator for ACEs Connection. With us, we also have Morgan Bain, Community Manager for the Resources Center, Alicia Doctor, our Network Manager, Jane Kennedy, our Community Lead, Samantha Sindento, our Data Scientist, and of course our founder, Jane Stevens. If you're not already an ACEs Connection member, please join us. You can join us at acesconnection.com. I'm going to go over some quick housekeeping rules. So there's no need to raise your hand. Please use the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen for questions. Questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. Also, this session will be recorded and will be available for future viewing. Any questions or concerns that we are not able to address during this webinar will be answered via acesconnection.com. We'll give you instructions on how to take care of that at the end of the session. So just to give you some information about ACEs Connection, we are a social network dedicated to supporting communities to accelerate ACEs science and solve our most intractable problems. ACEs Connection is a social network that recognizes the impact of a wide variety of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, in shaping adult behavior and health, and that promotes trauma-informed and resilience-building practices, policies, for all families, organizations, systems, and communities. And today we're here to talk about communities specifically. So when we think about ACEs Connection, it's kind of like Facebook for all of the professionals in the ACEs movement. We launched in 2012. Our founder, Jane Stevens, is a health and science and technology journalist who realized the need to educate the public about ACEs science, specifically the 5 parts of ACEs science, which is epidemiology, or surveys, the ACEs survey so that we can collect data, ACEs impact on the brain, ACEs impact on the physical body, epigenetics, or how trauma can be passed along to future generations, and of course, resilience. And so she decided to create a social network for people interested in the newly emerging field. Over the last 6 years, membership in ACEs Connection has grown to over 25,000 people from all over the world. And currently there are over 200 city, county, and region and state ACEs initiatives on our community sites. That number continues to grow. And we also receive generous funding from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the California Endowment, so that our tools, resources, and support are free to all members. With that, I'm going to allow our founder, Jane Stevens, to give the foreword for our webinar today.
Hi, Ingrid, thank you. And hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. We greatly appreciate this. As Ingrid said, ACEs Connection is the information hub for the ACEs movement. It's where we connect people in the ACEs movement, and we support communities. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit today. So there's some really interesting story that came out of Washington State a while ago. And it showed how a community, when it implemented ACEs science in all sectors across the community, they saw some remarkable results. They saw youth suicide and suicide attempts down 98%. They saw births to teen mothers go down by 2/3. They saw infant mortality go down by nearly half. Youth arrests for violent crime dropped by half, and high school dropout rates dropped by almost 50%. So we know now that this has a great impact. Implementing this knowledge about ACEs science across sectors and communities. So with that, we have as you know, we've started a lot of communities on ACEs Connection. Here's a map of all the ones we have so far, and we'll be adding more as time goes on, probably about 300 by the end of March. But what we want to do is provide enough structure and support for all those communities and the additional ones that come to join us, and create a national nonprofit cooperative. And what this will do is offer a whole bunch of other tools and guidelines for communities that are starting their ACEs initiatives. And among those will be an improved community sector analysis tool, a beefed up milestones tracker that combines, it marries progress with outcomes, learning communities, a fiscal pass-through, and Samantha Sanjanito, who will join this webinar a little bit later, will explain more details about that. What we plan on doing to continue to support this is, with this national cooperative, there'll be around a $5,000 a year membership fee, excuse me. And we wanted to make that low enough so that it was didn't have to be a budget line item in any organization's budget. This is something that would be fairly easy for organizations in different sectors to contribute to, and it would be a way that it would save all communities money so that they wouldn't have to invent these tools themselves. And also the part of the National Cooperative that I really like best is that the direction will come from the cooperative itself, because there will be a board of directors that will guide what the cooperative wants and what the communities want and need as they go forward. So I really think that this is a great opportunity for growing ACEs movements across the country in different cities and towns and counties and states and even nations. I think it's our best shot to really do what Cowlitz County and Washington State did, and to achieve these amazing results and improve the health and happiness of people in the communities. So my call to action to everybody today is to think about and contact us if you want to start a community on ACEs Connection. We'll be answering some of the questions that you might have about it through this webinar. And if you have any questions after the webinar, after we've answered your immediate questions, we'll be glad to answer those and to help you start communities if you would like to do that. So thanks again very much for being part of this webinar this morning.
Thank you so much, Jane, for setting the tone for our webinar today. Our next step is going to be our agenda. Today, we'll talk about our series overview. We'll dig into profiles and personal settings. We'll talk about the online communities and ACEs Connection site and their resources. And then finally, data, tools, and trackers. Again, this is just an introduction. We will be setting the tone for the future webinars that we will have monthly to address various topics on how to start your own community, not just with ACEs Connection in our online communities, but then also how to do it in real life. And so now let me introduce Gail, our community lead, to talk more about Growing Resilient Communities 2.0.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to talk, I don't know if I'm on screen, but hold on, let me make sure. Oh, I need to start my video. Okay, there we go. Now I'm on screen. Hi, everybody. Okay, so what I'm going to do really briefly is just give a little bit of a background about our Growing Resilient Communities 2.0. And Ingrid's going to show you where to find this information, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about it. So over the last few years, we've been trying to support communities that are starting communities, starting initiatives, or are on the path in their around their ACEs initiative. And what we've tried to do is collect information, resources, and tools from those communities. And we also have seen where communities were hitting roadblocks, and especially around how they organized their ACEs initiative and then how to measure their progress. And Samantha will talk about that a little bit later. But what we developed was growing resilient communities, and we said 2.0 because we had a 1.0 version, but we realized that it was a little too complicated, so what we tried to do is simplify it. And what you see here on the screen is our Growing Resilience 2.0 infographic, and that infographic actually has a lot of guidelines and tools and resources attached to each one of those 4 categories in the Growing Resilient Communities 2.0 version. So what we do, we have how to organize your local ACEs initiative, so how to do things like set up steering groups and mission statements and logic models, etc., so that you don't have to start from scratch. You can use somebody else's or adapt what we were able to identify. And all we ask is that if you like it and you think you've adapted and used it, that you share it back with the community so that we are building more and more and better these tools and resources. So then the 4 categories, the 4 areas you see are really what local and ACEs initiatives do in their communities. So they educate the community about ACEs science, and they engage people and organizations to join an initiative, and they activate these organizations to become trauma-informed, and they help them celebrate their successes by telling stories, holding summits, gathering data, and sharing those successes with themselves, and what we hope is with our community, with the wider community. So like I said, we're going to go into detail. This is really the overview of our entire series, what we have, what we've found, what some best practices, all of that kind of stuff for the rest of the series. So Ingrid, hopefully that's a good enough overview. Next slide.
Thank you, Gail. So let's talk about what we have already for our schedule. I know I put out a schedule before on the site, and we have made some adjustments. So I do want to talk about the updated descriptions. So again, this is for ACEs Connection community champions, coordinators, and managers. So you don't have to be an existing community manager, even though we would love for you to be. And if you're interested, we can help you to get that process started. But we are looking for people who are interested in starting an ACEs initiative in their area. And so this first one, January 25th, is our series overview. And so today we'll just introduce ourselves, introduce the series, discuss the GRC 2.0 approach, which just happened, and then provide an overview of the guidelines and tools that we provide. Next month, we'll focus on organizing your ACEs initiative. And that would include mission and value statements and creating norms. And in my experience, I do have some collective impact experience as with ACE Nashville for the last about 2.5 years. And this can be very difficult for people getting started. And it's very important. So a lot of times organizations and initiatives skip this step and then have to go back and do it later. So we hope that this is very helpful. And in this webinar, we'll talk about the benefits and the challenges of creating a shared mission statement, vision, goals, strategies, and a strategic plan for your initiative. Next, in March, we'll talk about launching an ACEs initiative, and this will align with the 2.0 educate tenet. And so in this webinar, we'll talk about how to launch a local ACEs initiative and ACEs community that can support that process. So how we can support you with launching your local ACEs initiative in real life. And of course, having the support of an online community that can be kind of a touchstone for your in real life initiative. in April, we will discuss becoming trauma informed, which aligns with the 2.0 engage and activate. And so we're looking for initiatives who are at the point where they're ready to engage their other local organizations. And so after they've been educated, after they've gone to a presentation, they know a little bit about what ACEs are, then we want to engage with them and then activate them to take that knowledge and move towards becoming trauma informed. And so we'll talk about strategies utilized by existing local initiatives to engage and activate local organizations. And then we have our May session, extremely important, how to tell your community story. And this aligns with the 2.0 Celebrate tenet. So in this webinar, we'll talk about why it's so critical to tell your story and to make sure that your story is available far and wide, meaning not just in your local community, but then also on a platform like ACEs Connections so that other states and other cities can see what you're doing and can learn from them. This will include how to blog, how to share questions, strategies, and successes with the wider ACEs Connection community, and then also how to use other social network platforms like Facebook and Twitter. And then in June, we will talk about developing leadership in your ACEs initiative. And this can be very important for your initiative in the long haul. You need to identify those in your initiative who are leaders, but then also know what their strengths are. So you have lots of people in your initiative that can do lots of different things, and you need to be able to identify what their talents are and help them to bring those talents to the table. And so that you have a full, robust initiative that is engaging all of your participants. When you don't do this, it can be problematic for people to want to remain in your initiative if they don't feel like they're being used to their fullest potential. So that is also a very important session. Future sessions past June, we will update you on those topics, and we will put out a schedule to everyone who has been following this series. So you will know what those future dates and topics will be well ahead of time. So now I'm going to take you guys to the site. First, we'll start with your profile and personal settings. So for everyone, this page should look very familiar. I'm going to go into my profile so you can see what your profile looks like and then how to go through and update your profile, how to use your profile to its fullest capabilities. As you can see here, when you hover over your icon at the right of the screen, you'll get a drop down that has all of the categories. And so let's start with the profile page. Let's see, so this is your profile. This green dot lets you and others know that you're actually logged in on the site. You can edit your profile from here, but other functions of the profile that you may not be using are things like activity. You can see what you've done in the past. So you can see that I've liked someone else's post right here, or comment. I've also posted a video in resources, and so my activity is here. You can also see what communities you are currently joined. So this is a listing of the communities that I'm in currently. You can also use this port to edit your profile. If I wanted to edit my email, I can change it here. Edit my password, I can change it here. I can also add my birthday, your zip code, your state and city, and you can also change your profile pic or avatar here as well. The next thing to be aware of is your alerts. and the settings for your alerts. So I'm on the site frequently, so I don't have it set for me to get emails whenever I receive alerts. But when I come onto the site, I can see if I have alerts here when I have a red indicator with the number beside it. So these are my alerts. It shows comments on posts that I'm following. I can also see if someone has followed me. Thanks, Linda. I can also see the posts that are coming through on the main site. I can see what other people have posted in different groups that I'm following. And I can see where people have joined the groups that I'm following. So again, if you want to see your alerts, just hover over and you can see your alerts and private messages. Private messaging is confidential. You can allow people to message you. You can also turn this functioning off. But this is instantaneous. If someone messaged you while you're on, you can talk with them, kind of a chat. We also have a chat feature. Let's see. So let's go into notifications. I get a lot of my members, they reach out to me about the emails that they receive. And so if you want to make sure that you're not getting a flood of emails, you can always go in and change your settings for how you're notified. See right here, I have on-site alerts. And so that's why I come on the site frequently and I can see when I have private messages and alerts. I could change this to email, and then I would receive not just the online alerts, but I would also receive an email to the email that I have connected with my account. So when you have it on email, excuse me, when you have it on email, just know that you'll receive a lot of emails from this site. If you go under the AC homepage, you'll be able to change what you get a notification for. You can get a notification for a new blog. You can get a notification for all the comments on that blog. Also new videos and downloads and surveys and private messages. If you don't want to receive them, you need to make sure that you uncheck all of these boxes. Just know that if you do want to receive them, that you may receive emails if you have that for setting. Some people turn off the AC homepage notifications and just have notifications for their community sites. On this page, you can see your communities and you can set up notifications for each one. Excuse me. These are all of the communities that I follow. And so I can go in and select a particular site and then change the notifications for each one. So within groups, I can get new blog posts, video downloads, just like I could for the main site. And now let's go to personal settings. So again, this should be one of the first things that you do when you sign in for the first time. You should go in and cater to what types of emails you want to receive and from where. And you will do that here through notifications. Next, we'll go through personal settings. This is important for me, especially because I deal with people from lots of different time zones. So you can set your time zone when you first sign up and put in your location. And you can also set privacy. So that green button that shows that you're online, if you click here, then you can keep your online status private. You can prevent new private messages being sent to you. Just like I said before, you have the capacity to turn off that feature for private messages. You can take your location data from photos and things like that that you upload, which is good for your security, personal security. And you can also hide your likes from your activity stream. These default notification preferences are already checked for you, so you will have to go in and change them if you like. So whenever you follow content, whenever you create like a new blog, you will automatically be following it. When you reply or comment to something, you will automatically be following it. When you follow a private message, whenever you receive a private message, you will automatically follow it. So you will have to come in here to change that. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather, so if I have a spontaneous cough fit, please show grace. Let's see. One thing to remember about the site and about your profile is that you always need to make sure that you are logged in. Sometimes you can access the site and it will default to guest. If you're not logged in, you can't engage with the full functionality of the site. I had plenty of people who reached out to me about the webinar and said that they weren't able to RSVP. And it was because they were in as a guest and they hadn't actually logged in. So it's very important when you first come onto the site to make sure that you're logged in. And you'll know that you're logged in when you can see your icon at the right. So now let's look at our online communities. So right here we have the Northeast Tennessee ACEs connection. I'm biased, I'm in Tennessee, so I wanted to highlight this community. One thing you want to make sure of is that you, in order to fully get access to the group, you need to join the group. So, and you can join a group by clicking on any group on the home site. Whenever you go to the home icon, you need to make sure that you're talking about either community home or the main site home. We go to the main site home and go to communities in the dashboard. Then you'll get to this space where you have either your communities or all communities. One way to categorize your communities so that you can make sure that you're able to easily find them is to sort alphabetically. Northeast Tennessee is one of my communities. So if I go here and scroll down, I'll be able to find it here. And if I wasn't a member of this community, you would get the option up top to join it. Make sure that, again, for the home, you know that when you're in the main site, when you use the different items on the dashboard, you're using it for the entire site. And then when you're in the community, you're using it for the community. So if you try to blog right now, it's going to blog directly into this community, not to the main site, and vice versa. If you're going to blog on the main site, it'll go out to everyone and not to a specific community. And so as we're here and we're thinking about people who are community managers, there are a lot of resources for people who are managing their own community. The types of resources that we have on the communities are catered for your local initiative. So as you can see here, Northeast Tennessee has a community tracker so that they can look at their area and show that certain areas have been trained. And then this allows them to look for gaps, who hasn't been trained. And the variations in the buttons is also showing who's doing the training, who's receiving the training. So the presentation tracker is very good for obviously collecting data, showing your successes, but then also showing where the gaps are. As you can see here, these are different blogs that have been posted to the site that either the community manager or myself have included. One important feature is the blog directory. So if you are crafting a blog or any type of resource for a community site, it is very important for you to categorize your blog so that it can fall into one of the categories and can be easily found later. So if I'm on this site and I'm looking for ACEs, stories, and champions, then I need to be able to click on this and pull up all of the blogs that have been entered into this site that fall into this category. Same with data, conferences, classes, presentations, meeting notes. All of this should be categorized. And so be sure when you post a blog that you put it into the correct directory so that it can be found later. Also, a common question is that when people are looking through existing blogs on the community or on the main site, they kind of get towards the end and they maybe aren't able to find what they're looking for, or they're looking for a post that has been put up, last week or last month. Just know that when you get towards the end of the blog section, you can always press all blog posts, and then that will take you to the remaining posts that you are not seeing on the front page. So this will open up other blog posts that are available in order by date. Other features that are available on the groups, just like the main site, you have a calendar and ask the community. And you also have the ability to upload resources. So let's look at that. Excuse me. As you can see here, this group has uploaded Nadine Burke-Harris's TED Talk, How Childhood Trauma Affects Health Across a Lifetime. They have also created a file, Cyber Safety for their caregivers. So this has documents as well. And if you wanted to add to this as a member, you can only do that if you were a member. Then you would click on Post, and then you have the option of adding resources and videos, or you could post to ask the community, or do a regular blog post, or a calendar event. And then for this section, this would allow for you to upload different files, videos, photos, audio files from your computer onto the group. Let's also look into a calendar event on this site. You can create a calendar event here. Calendar events for groups are very useful. First, you can take calendar events and add them to your main calendar, your personal calendar. But then also you can put these events onto the event calendar for your group. You can put them onto the event calendar for the main site so that it's open nationwide. You can also put any type of event that you want to put up. A lot of times you want to connect with your initiative members to say, we're going to have a monthly meeting, so you can put up your regular meeting. If you're doing an event or a training, you can put up these types of events on your group calendar. And so again, this is the Northeast Tennessee ACEs connection. This is a fairly new group. And if you are interested in having your own group, this is just a snapshot of what your group would look like. And let's go back to the main site home. So when it comes to our online communities, we have several different options. One of our most vibrant communities is Parenting with ACEs. And our community manager for this site is one of our other community facilitators, Sissy White. This is a very popular group, and it focuses on caregivers who are dealing with their own trauma and ACEs. And it has a lot of interesting resources here. This is one of our interest-based groups. Another interest-based group would be our state ACEs resolutions and laws. And this is really focused on policies and state resolutions and laws and sharing information across states. And then, of course, we have communities that are focused on state ACEs action. So this is Maryland. And so all people in Maryland are encouraged to interact with this group and share resources. And then, of course, we can also, again, this is the Northeast Tennessee, so we have regional groups as well as county groups. So ACEs Connection, you have a wide variety of group types. We also have organizational groups. We have groups that are focused around hospitals and other organizations like Big Brothers Big Sisters and schools. And so there's a wide variety of communities on ACEs Connection. So now let's look at the main ACEs Connection site and resources on the main site. So this is our homepage. And as you can see, you have here on the dashboard, all the different resources for the homepage. We have the Ask the Community, the calendar, and these are resources that are also available in your groups. So let's talk about our welcome. On the side here, we have our welcome button. This is where you should go when you first get on the site as a member. If you haven't been there already and you are already a member, please go here. It has a lot of information just to get you started. It has a welcome and a tour, and it has a lot of information that would be that would make your your matriculation through the site much easier. So feel free to go here and read the welcome email. It talks about the 5 parts of ACEs science, directions on how to post a blog, a calendar invite. And so all of these things that we went through are also housed here. So anything that you, a week later, you don't remember what we talked about, you can watch the recording, first of all, but then you can also go on the site and go to the welcome button. Also, you want to look at mapping the movement as a new member. This allows you to see what groups are already existing, and you may be able to find something that's close to your area. And so when you pull up the map on mapping the movement, you'll see these dots that are showing where in the country and where in the world we have sites. And so you can find some in your area, and if you click on them, you'll show what the community is, and you can go to that community on the site. This is very good for, again, identifying local movements that are close to you. So if you're looking to start your own community, you could definitely look and see who else in your area is doing the same. You may be able to collaborate with them. You can also look for other members on the site. When you go to the members icon on the dashboard, you can do advanced searches. So you can invite others to join. You can also do advanced searches of the members that are already existing. And then you'll be able to see which members are in your area by zip code. You can see their pictures and their profiles, unless they've been set to private. And this allows you to make connections with people in your area, or even across the country or across the world, who are also wanting to make connections around ACEs initiatives. Next, let's look at the calendar. This just shows what is going on when it comes to what's available across the whole movement. So this is not just focused on just specific groups. These are nationwide. And then before I move over to other resources, I want to show what's available on the home site as far as how-tos. To the right, you can find many resources. You can find where we store our webinars. Our webinar that we've done today will be here. We have the how-to section. We have a need help section. If you have questions that are not addressed in this webinar, you can also come here to ask follow-up questions. They will be answered by our very own Alicia Doctor. And then lastly, we have the Resource Center. The Resource Center is like ACES Connections Library. And I will let Morgan Bain tell you more about our Resource Center.
Thank you, Ingrid. Hi, everyone. I'm the community manager for the ACES Connection Resources Center. The Resources Center is a collection of resources that we carefully review and curate to include resources that are useful and can serve as starting points for further exploration. There are many categories such as ACES Science and Racism, ACES Science for Communities and Workplaces, research, handouts for parents about ACEs, toxic stress and resilience, policy and legislation, organizations, ACEs and resilience surveys, Spanish language resources, sector-specific topics such as education, parenting, and pediatrics, trauma-informed guides and training, and much more. Clicking on sector-specific categories in the Resources Center will redirect you to the full resource list in the sector's community. We want these resource lists to grow, especially with the suggestions from ACES Connection members. ACES Connection members can become members of the Resources Center to comment at the bottom of resource lists with additional resources. We will review the comments and may include resources suggested by members in the list. We're working on expanding and updating the categories we have right now, and we'll add more categories in the future, such as ACEs and natural disasters, child welfare, juvenile justice, staff development, and more. Please let us know if you want something that you don't see. We would like to make the Resources Center as useful as we can. Thank you. Next slide, please.
So our last section is going to be data, tools, and trackers. And so I will give it over to Samantha Sanjanito, and she's going to be, well, she is our data scientist, and she's going to be discussing these types of tools that are helpful to communities, especially online communities, as far as tracking their data.
Thanks, Ingrid. So I'm going to run through both our presentations tracker tool today and then also our milestones tracker, which is available to our national cooperative communities. So first, the presentations tracker is free and available to every community on ACES Connection. Ingrid, the next slide, please. All you have to do to tell us that you would like the presentations tracker added to your community site is to let your CF know, give us about a week, and we will have one up and running for you. Next slide. The presentation tracker allows your community to record all presentations done in your geographic area by sector, including information such as attendance, the date of the presentation, who gave the presentation, and very importantly, the sector that best represents the audience that attended that presentation. We at ACEs Connection believe that this is of paramount importance because we believe that to be truly trauma-informed, a community must collaborate across sectors, and to do that, all sectors need to be educated and have ACEs presenters and trainers reaching out to them. So this tool allows you to track both where your successes are, but also where your gaps are so that you can better plan your outreach efforts. For example, on this Minnesota tracker, they've done an excellent job in this state in their education communities. You can see that in the north and in the northeast, that green dot, that education dots, they're all over the map. But in the southwest part of the state, they could do a little bit more. You can also see pretty easily that business, media, and recreational clubs and organizations have not yet been brought to the table. So we want to both be celebrating successes and highlighting areas where we can work a little bit more. Next slide, please. If you click on any of the dots that represent an individual presentation, you'll see the information that we have stored come up on that dot. So you can see here that this presentation was given to an adult detention center, that there were 5 people in attendance and when it happened. You can also use the widget on the left-hand side of the page that selects the sector to display to show only the sector presentations that you might be interested in. Next slide. The tracker also allows you to see all of your data output as a table, which is very nice to show funders or other organizers who might be interested in having a record of your data. This data is collected by a Google survey, and it is automated. So when someone from your community records a presentation, that data is automatically sent to your tracker, and within a few minutes, you will see the dot populate on the tracker. The survey lives in a widget that Ingrid had mentioned before on your community page, which makes it very easy for you to manage. Next slide. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the ACEs Connection Milestones Tracker, which is a more sophisticated tool that is only available to members of our national cooperative. This tool was really born out of the principle that what gets measured gets done. It's a performance management tool that allows a community to record all of the trauma-informed activities that that community is engaged in, and also allows the community to record its outputs and outcomes of that work. So this is the first page. The tracker does 2 things. It measures this information at a global level, so by all sectors, and then also more granularly by individual sector. So we'll start at the general level and then move on to the sector level. On the first page, it gives you a snapshot of how many organizations are committed to your community. And it also does it by sector. So here it gives you a very quick overview of where you need to engage more. So here we can see childcare, we need, and civic organizations need to be brought into the table, but we're doing pretty well on community initiatives. Next slide, please. Next, the tracker visualizes ACEs data when it is available for your state. Just a quick note, this is an example tool. This is not real data, so please do not report on this out back to Tennessee. But the actual data will be pulled from the Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance Survey System, or BRFIS, if it's available in your state, and if it's not available in your state and you would like it to be, please see us and we'll work with you to sort of work on that effort. So this mock-up of Tennessee shows both the percent of people with 2 or more ACEs within these geographic regions, but then also superimposes over that these dots that represent different organizations within your community. So this lets you see where the need is within your community and lets you judge where you should be planning your outreach efforts as well. So you can see that light community where most of the dots formed. While of course ACEs are an issue everywhere, you want to see over to the east that that community is really struggling and has pretty high rates of ACEs. So we might want to make sure that we're reaching out to organizations over there as well. Next slide. When you click on any of these dots that represent organizations, you'll see what that organization is, what sector it's from, and then very importantly, something called the TIC tracker number. That number relates to how many milestones an individual organization has completed on the path towards becoming trauma-informed. Next slide. These milestones are computed from a self-assessment that we designed at ACEs Connection. We looked at self-assessments from a bunch of different sectors that measure different things an organization can do to become trauma-informed, and came up with one that we believe is generally applicable to all sectors. So it asks things that are very quick and easy, like, has your staff received an ACEs science presentation? Does HR include trauma-informed policies? Different things like that, just so you can get a 50-foot view of where the different organizations are on their path for becoming trauma-informed in your community. So this just gives a global snapshot. Next, we're going to move into an example of how the tracker measures different activities, outputs, and outcomes by sector. And the sector we're going to use as an example is education, but every sector that your community touches will be reflected in your community's tracker. Next slide, please. So we go back to a map of Tennessee, but this time the different regions are shaded by the percentage of chronically absent students by school district. And we're using chronic absence because we just don't have ACEs data at the school district level. That's not available. So we're choosing chronic absence because there is a belief there that ACEs and chronic absence sort of travel together. And also we would believe that if a school or an organization, educational organization, were implementing trauma-informed practices, that environment might help a student that's struggling with chronic absence. So we're hoping that we're tracking both the education activities and this outcome measure so that in a year or 2 years or more, we might begin to see that needle move. Now, this is not designed to prove anything or to help anyone write an academic paper on this, but it is made for your community to be able to better manage your resources by tracking what activities are happening where. Next slide, please. So if you click on a dot, which are only education organizations, or in this case, schools, you'll see the name of the school, if there's a subsector associated with the school, but also its milestone number. So that milestone number relates similarly to the TIC tracker number in that it's telling you how many of our sector milestones this organization has completed. For education, we ask a couple of things. Next slide. We ask in our education sector survey, does your school practice restorative justice? Has it created cross-sector partnerships? Does it provide self-care to teachers and staff? Is it teaching mindfulness to students? The percent of discipline cases that will use restorative justice, percent of teachers trained in trauma-informed methods. Next slide. Percent of discipline cases resolved using restorative justice, and percent, oh, sorry, that was just the continuation of the slide. But basically, for every sector, we're asking, do you do this activity? How often do you use it? How many people are affected by it? It's designed to be very quick and easy for someone who the community manager of your group identifies as a good representative of that organization to answer very quickly. The survey can be answered in less than 30 minutes in most cases. The idea is that by giving you this survey, we designed these questions based on what we've seen other communities on ACEs Connection do. We've seen different organizations teach mindfulness to students, and we've seen them provide self-care to teachers and staff. So we're asking if your community is doing the same. So we're both asking if you're doing it and giving you an idea of what different things your organizations can do. And in this survey, we also include a blank question that asks you, are you doing any other activities that are trauma-informed that we should know about? So you're helping to generate more information on what are best practices in schools that can be used to help other organizations that are part of our co-op. Additionally, you're also allowing us to know at ACEs Connection what activities you're doing so that we can pair communities together to get together in something called virtual think tanks. So these will be virtual Zoom meetings, just like we're doing now, except you'll be able to talk to each other, where you can collaborate and talk about the different problems that you're coming up with, or different solutions that you've implemented that work really well, so that we can foster this online learning community where can really talk to each other and get best practices. And that'll be open to our national cooperative members. So that about concludes the milestones tracker, and I will turn it back to Ingrid.
Thank you, Samantha. I know that we are not great on time management right now, but I do want to see if we have any questions. Let's tackle maybe 2 or 3 and go over a little bit. So if you want to stick around, you can. And then I will also put up information so that if you want to start a community for yourself or you have any further questions, you can contact us. Alicia, do you have maybe a couple of questions that stand out that you want to address on air?
Sure. So I will take the answer of social sharing. Let me just go ahead and prep my screen really quick. This is a really quick one. So if you want to share something on the main website, what you're going to do is just, this is a blog post from the main site. This is a news article that was posted today. So what you would do is click on the post, and then at the very bottom of the screen, you can see all of these social share buttons, and you can go ahead and share out with any of these. And then I'm going to turn it over to Gail to talk about how to start a community.
Sure. We're going to put up at the very end, in a minute or two, we're going to put up contact details for everybody where we all cover. All of us have regions. So Ingrid is in the Midwest. I cover part of the West. So we have folks that you can contact from ACEs Connection if you're interested in starting a community. And we saw the one question from Washington State, and so we already are on that. And Karen Clemmer, who's our contact, and is already going to be contacting you. Name, but she's on it. So anyway, you can contact us, and on the main site in the About section, you can see a map if you want to figure out who. What part of the country you fall into, and any international folks we have on the phone, please contact me. That's mine. Next question, maybe Jane, do you want to talk about the cooperative and how folks?
Yeah, I'll talk real quick and then turn it over to let me get back down. Turn it over to Morgan. So the cooperative, everything that Samantha just talked about will be offered to members in the cooperative, except for the 2 free parts, which is the community sector spreadsheet, and also the presentations tracker. But everything else will be part of for members of the National Cooperative. And we'll be announcing pretty soon exactly how you can participate in that. So now over to Morgan to answer some questions about educational materials.
Hi, so there's educational materials available in each community. If you look to the categories on the right toolbar, there will be categories titled handouts, guides, reports, research. So there are educational materials available in each community that is specific to the interests that you're looking for, or the region that you're looking for. And there are also resources and educational resources available in the Resources Center, labeled as the categories are named. In addition, you are very welcome to create your own educational resources, and we would love to see what you come up with, and we would like to share it with our communities and the home site at large. And then we'll turn it over to Samantha to do a quick recap of the differences between surveys.
Yes, so the differences between the surveys. The Presentations Tracker survey is available to anyone within your ACEs Connection community. The link to that survey lives in the widget that we'll create for you once you tell us that you want the presentations tracker. And it's up to your community manager to decide who takes that survey on behalf of your community. So in some cases, we've seen groups prefer that the actual presenter of that survey fills out, you know, their own name, who came, the sectors represented. And in some cases, it's better for the organization who sponsored that presentation to do it. But that survey is very simple to fill out. It takes less than 10 minutes to fill out. There are less than 10 questions. And that's free and available. The surveys, the milestone survey, and then that sector-specific milestone survey that makes up that second tool that I showed you, which is the milestones tracker. Those two surveys are slightly more involved than the presentations tracker survey. It's still a Google form. It's still available to communities on their community page, but that's only available to our national cooperative members. And as Jane mentioned, we're going to be releasing some information about the national cooperative soon. But for right now, if that tool is interesting to you and you think that it might help your community, let your CF know that when you are interested in having that tool, and we'll be sure to contact you as soon as the cooperative is ready for membership. Okay, I think we're ready for our next question. Alicia, can you take the next question?
Yes, so we had a question about sharing content from other sites to your own site. And the way that you might want to do that is to contact your community facilitator. They have the way that they can clone posts, but that is an administrative, that's something that only administrators can do. Otherwise, you can copy and paste the article from one site to another, but that is an administrative thing that we can do by cloning. That was a question by Mai. And let's see, there was a couple more questions about the cooperative. Jane, did you want to answer these before?
Yes. So there are the communities that are on. Let me put my video on. Sorry. The communities that are on now, and the communities that just start. You can join ACEs Connection for free and start a community for free and get those basic tools that we told you about, the presentations tracker and the sector spreadsheet. But when you're ready to move on to the more complex data and more services, that's when you can join the National Cooperative, which will cost $5,000 a year. And that will support our efforts in making these more complex tools available. So there will be a free component. Everybody who's on there now can stay free and can still use their community resources on ACEs Connection and everything on ACEs Connection. But when your community is ready to move to the next level, that's when you can join the National Cooperative.
Okay, thank you to all of our panelists for being present, being able to share information and answer any questions. And thank you to all of our participants. And I see that we had about 100 participants, so I'm very excited, especially since this is our first webinar of this series. As I said before, this will be recorded and will be on the site in our webinar section and also on our YouTube channel. And so anyone who is signed up, you will receive the link via email and a follow-up via email. And we will also make sure that you are included in the invites for all of our future sessions. So again, thank you so much for being involved, and we are very excited for you to start online communities with us here at ACEs Connection. Have a good rest of the day.